There's a number of new features in this release, some of that related to new functionality and enhancements. Others are aimed at improving efficiency of authoring process, and I'm sure you will find at least some of them are useful to your daily work with RapidAuthor. Now, you are welcome to ask questions as we go through, but we will also dedicate some time in the end of today's webinar to your questions. So you may either just ask questions, or you may use a text chat for your questions. Right, so let us start. Now, we first will be looking at authoring features and enhancements that we implemented in this version. The first one on the list is that we implemented visualization of surface edges in RapidAuthor. Let me show you what I'm referring to here. This is how you would normally see geometry in RapidAuthor, and these are the edges that I'm referring to. And this is pretty standard functionality in your typical CAD software, such as SolidWorks, CATIA, and so on. We read these surface edges from the geometry file, so this is not something that we generate upon input. They are strictly imported if there are in the original, if they are presented in the original CAD data. And the real benefit of this feature is not really the visual part of the edges in 3D window here, but rather that we can now also add them onto your 2D illustrations. So suppose for this geometry, if I were to disable these edges or simply use the previous versions of RapidAuthor, this is the kind of outline that you would see. You see these bevel angles are simply not carried forward to the outline. Now we have this separate checkbox for enabling surface edges for the purpose of carrying them forward to the preview. This is how they are now outlined in this way. You can selectively turn them on and off in 3D window, and likewise for 2D edges, like so. Now, a few limitations. These edges are not carried forward to your HTML publications unless you are a user of Cortona3D Solo API library. You may enable them using the library, but they are disabled by default, as you can see here. This feature, the edges, are also compatible with the trim representation cutting, like so. So you see here edges are also appropriately displayed. So this is the first item on our list, and we will be also looking later how to disable or enable input of surface edges in the Rapid Developer. But the setting that reads surface edges is enabled by default with standard input profiles. If you have for existing projects, you will not be able to enable surface edges, so you would just need to re-input your project file from the start. So this doesn't really affect existing projects. You have to perform input action from the start. The second item on the list in terms of authoring process is that we now can selectively turn on and off visibility of explosion thrust lines. This is what I'm referring to here now. Let me show you two explosions here. Now I can just selectively turn off thrust lines for this explosion, like so. Previously, we would either turn them on or off globally, and now you can do this selectively. So again, this is under Collections window, right click, thrust lines, like so. This is carried forward to your HTML publications, to PDF. 3D PDF is not supporting thrust lines at all. and this is displayed on the 2D preview window as well. Here you can see that like so. The third item is a new object in the object gallery called callout image. Let me show you an example of that. This is a project with already inserted new object. As you can see, this is a panel image which is tied to 3D coordinates. Previously, we had a panel image object here, but it was tied to screen coordinates. So if I were to add this image, you can see it is in effect tied to screen coordinates, but not to 3D coordinates. And this is the new feature that has been added on request from several clients. You can see how this behaves in non-publication as well. And of course, it has your standard callout properties, like you can pick it, you can attach it to any item using pick button. You can adjust reference lines, the way the bounding shape is represented, and so forth. So once again, this is object gallery callout image. So we have a callout, which is texture-based callout, also in 3D coordinates. Now we have callout image in 3D coordinates, and we have panel image and panel text. Both of them are tied to screen coordinates rather than 3D coordinates as with the first two. Now, in the previous version of RapidAuthor 11.0, which we released last summer, we added the ability to import normals for the purpose of generating 2D images. Now, we can selectively delete normals from individual items. Let me show you how this works. So, suppose for some reason I would like to delete them for this assembly item. If I go to Edit, Change Representation Properties, and uncheck this checkbox, Keep Normals, this would delete normals for this assembly item. Now, if I select it again, you can see the checkbox is unticked, meaning normals are now deleted entirely. You cannot restore them. And now you may use crease angle setting instead. As some of you are familiar with this setting, crease angle affects the roughness of rounded surfaces. And you can either use crease angle setting or keep normals. They're not working with each other, so either the first one or the second, like so. The final item, which we also added, is the revision marks in generic IPC specification, which was supported for specification components called S1000D IPD and ATA. Let me show you an example here how these revision marks operate. So this is a sample demonstration project. One of the pages here. Now, if I go to File, New Revision, this effectively memorizes the state of all the rows, and if I am to start editing items here, like so, this adds a vertical line implying that there is some kind of change with this specific row. This is exactly the way it works with S1000D and ATA, for instance. Now we also added this to generic IPC. And if I'm now to publish this project, you would see the letter R, which is placed along this line in the DPL table here. like so. So once again, whenever you want to start showing the revision marks, you simply go to File, View Revision, and all subsequent changes that you make will be marked with the vertical line, and also, of course, in the HTML publication with the letter R. Now, we also added a number of additional publishing options. The first one is the ability to generate HTML plugin-less publication in a single HTML file. Let's see an example of that with this project. So, Tools, Publish Options, use browser plugins now, implying we will be now publishing HTML publication. Now, if I select Create Single HTML Bundle as Yes, and perform a publish operation, you can see here, this is my folder. It still generates this resources folder containing our viewer, but you are free to delete it. It is still being generated. You can see this HTML file is 7 megabytes in size. It contains all the resources, the VRML, the images, and so on. And now I can actually launch this, and this is our publication. The only limitation about this functionality is that it does not work with Internet Explorer version 11. So all your modern browsers support encoded embedded resources apart from Internet Explorer. The benefit of this is that you can now effectively launch HTML plugin-less publications locally from your file system. Before that, you had to upload the HTML along with the resources onto web browser and access it with the HTTP protocol. And this is the limitation that browsers imposed recently. They simply do not load some external resources unless they access through HTTP protocol. So this is the single file. It can be either opened like I did from a file system or from the web server via HTTP protocol. Another publishing option is the shopping cart functionality. Let's once again check it on this project. Publish options again. Use shopping cart, and this is the setting that I'm referring to here. Let's generate once again the preview of this project with the shopping cart. As you can see here on the shopping cart icons, I can start adding items to the cart, and there's another one here in the top right corner, and it shows the contents of our shopping cart. I can adjust the number of items that I would like to order. When a user clicks order button, it effectively generates CSV file with those items. Now the logic behind this is that really this is your starting point for customization. So normally, of course, what would happen when you click order button is that this would trigger some kind of call to the backend system of your e-commerce platform, and this will generate actual order. But as is, I would just provide the CSV output. So this is your starting point for customization. So once again, this is included just with generic IPC as a specification component. The publishing option is use shopping cart. Now, a few changes in regards to generation of 2D illustrations of your 3D geometry. Of course, I have shown already the part that actually visualize the surface edges on the first project here. So there is a separate setting. This button here on the toolbar, it only affects 3D view, but if you would like surfaces to be displayed in 2D preview, so for your 2D illustrations, you go to 2D image options, general, and this is the checkbox you're looking at, use surface edges. It is now enabled by default with version 11.1, and this generates surface edges. Another part of the improvements in regards to creation of 2D illustrations is that we're now supporting section planes. Section planes, as some of you are familiar with them, are these items that allow you to demonstrate cross sections of geometry, like so. Previously, in all previous versions of RapidAuthor, this did not affect 2D preview, so you would still see complete geometry here. This is somewhat similar to trim representations functionality, but what it does, it actually cuts the geometry. Section plane can be disabled later on. So suppose you take an image of this, you generate an image, and then you can simply delete this section plane. So it doesn't cut actual geometry, it's just the visual representation of the section plane. Another addition to our logic of 2D illustration process is that we now save viewpoints separately from IPC viewpoints. Let me show you what I mean by that on this sample project here. So this is our item here. Suppose I want to create a viewpoint like so, this sort of viewpoint. Now, what we can now do, if we take different viewpoint, like this one, generate callouts, and if we now generate a 2D illustration from this viewpoint, so callout view, this viewpoint is now memorized. And if I change the viewpoint here, I walk through my IPC pages, and if I delete this item, just to show you the usual update mechanism, so I just delete it, and now I want to update all my images. Like so. Now, if we again open that image, you can see it got updated, of course, but the viewpoint, that original viewpoint that was saved when we captured this image is here. So it is actually different from a 3D IPC viewpoint, and these are now separate things. On the previous RapidAuthor versions, when we were to click update to the images, we would see here this viewpoint in actual fact, and now they are separate. So this is sort of a different logical containers for saving viewpoints separately from 3D viewpoints, which are saved once again here at the set page viewpoint icon on the top right corner. So you are not tied anymore to IPC page viewpoint. Another correction that we introduced is that the size of callout text is now specified in points here, And when you launch a Cortona3D Editor Pro, they are also displayed here in the same units, so points. Previously, we had a slight mismatch between units used here in the Cortona3D Editor Pro and in this section here. So these were different units. They were in the millimeters and points. Now they are single units. It's just corrected some mismatch between the two. Another change in regards to the interface. This is not a new functionality, just the change in RapidAuthor interface. If you were to add some gallery item object, your custom one, to the gallery, so I created a panel text and I want to add it to the object gallery. What you would see in previous versions of RapidAuthor is just an empty white thumbnail here with your text. Now we're actually generating the screenshot of that image, of that object here. This just helps you to distinguish your custom-made projects as custom-made gallery items. Just the point of usability here. Now, a significant number of changes have been added to the Cortona3D Editor Pro. Let's look at those. So the first thing on the list is that we now added this transformation window, which is a collection of all different windows that are related to moving, scaling, and otherwise manipulating the item. So previously, when you were selecting some shapes, and suppose you wanted to scale the shape, you would see a small window appearing somewhere along the on the canvas of 2D Editor Pro, and this somewhat distracted the users, and some of them wanted a single point in the user interface where all the actions relating to different actions relating to the manipulations with the shapes were to shown collected in one place, and this is just the window where all those actions are now represented. So it is a fixed place. It is undockable with all other windows, and this is again the point of usability and efficiency of work with our tools. Now we also added a layers toolbar. As some of you are familiar with layers, we make use of layers in Cortona3D Editor Pro. This is the new toolbar that I'm referring to. You may, using these icons, you can lock all your layers at once, unlock them, make them visible, hide, and so on. So this is just, again, new feature that enhances your efficiency when you work with RapidAuthor. Here, moving on, another feature that we added is that you can now find different shapes that share the same style using the right-click context menu. So let me just apply a custom style to one of the shapes, save it, Now I apply this style to some other shape as well here. Now if I just right click on the original first shape and go to select by style, you can see now the second shape is also picked up, so it picks up all shapes that share the common style, like so. So once again, and this is right click, select by style, like so. A new addition to the toolbar, the main toolbar on the left-hand side of Cortona3D Pro, is that we added these new shapes, callout, text box, arrow, and balloon. And this is the toolbar that I'm referring to here, these ones. Now we added callout, but a callout object. But of course, in all previous versions of 2D Editor Pro, of course, we had a shape gallery with all these callouts. The difference is that this new object callout, it is actually a base template for all your callouts. So it has all those properties that you can change. If you are to select callouts from the shape gallery, these ones, they have different properties, and they're slightly dissimilar. So if you ever need to add callouts manually rather than generating them from the RapidAuthor itself, you may consider using a callout shape from the main toolbar, as it has all those properties that you can modify. Now also we added a new property that allows you to give it a either horizontal or vertical sideline, like so. So this is the this is one new property, and now you can also center your anchor in the middle, like so. This is another property of the callout centering, callout anchor centering rather. Okay, I'm moving on. In regards to the text primitives, if I just start typing different text here, and let's just type slightly dissimilar text with different fonts, like so. So if I select both of them, right click and select align base, what it would do, it would align them on the text along the text reference line, like so. If I were to use the pre-existing functionality like align bottom, this wouldn't really work with text primitives. So this specific align base feature, it takes into account the reference line of each font and aligns dissimilar text primitives along the reference line, common reference line, like so. Another change, this is not a new functionality, it's just a change that we introduced with this version, is the ways of creating line primitives. So before that, you could select one of the line primitives and point on the canvas somewhere and just start dragging the line primitive and release it. And if you were to click at once and release, it would just place a randomly sized line primitive somewhere. Now, if you with this version, if you click once and then release the button, you are still creating the line primitive, and the second click triggers the endpoint, and this is in effect this new logic that we introduced. So two ways are either to start dragging, and the second one is to click once and click second time and release. This would create line primitive. Now we also somewhat simplified the way you can create a polyline from the line. Now let me just find some good example on this canvas, like this one. Okay, and what I can do, I can right click somewhere along this line, click then add point. Let's first see this line here. Okay, it is already polyline. If I just undo that action, okay, this is a line. If I right click at point, it immediately getting transformed to polyline, and now I can just drag it, continue. Before that, you had to perform a number of clicks. First, you were to convert this this line to polyline, and then start adding points. So that's just a reduced number of clicks that you need to achieve the same result. Now, in regards to the fill tool, we added two new ways of creating fill figure. In previous versions, what you would do, you would drag the fill tool along some of the enclosed shapes and release it. This would create a fill figure. The second way was to just click within the enclosed shape. This would also create a figure. Now, what you can do with this new version, if you select the fill tool and hold control button on your keyboard and just start making reference points and release it somewhere, this would again create a figure. And another way to do this with the freehand mode is, again, select the fill tool and hold Control Alt at once, and now you can use the usual freehand method of achieving the same result, so creating enclosed figure like so. So select fill tool, Control for polygon lasso, and Control Alt for freehand method. Another addition that relates to the fill tool is that the width of a line primitive now respects the fill tool, or vice versa. So let me just demonstrate this. Let's just create a triangle like so, but not enclosed one. Obviously, if I try to use fill tool here, this wouldn't work since the triangle is not enclosed. If I am to change the width of this line, like so, this is now enclosed shape from the fill point of view, and this is the figure that I have just created. So the width of line is now recognized by the fill tool. And finally, we also can change the dash styles, the direction of dash styles in a matter of one click. So once again, a point of efficiency. So let's just create a line primitive, apply some custom dash style, like so. And you can see here when you start adding a new line primitive, you see this arrow. It's pointing in the direction that correlates to your dash style, like so. Let's just increase the width of this line. Now, if I just right click and in the context menu selecting inverting path, this would just invert the path. As easy as that. Previously you had to rearrange this sequence here and this button. Now you can just swap the direction in the opposite direction. And finally, we also added predefined S1000D canvas sizes. And to be able to do that, you go on the meter file explorer to the root element, which is picture. Select picture extent, and here are all your S1000D predefined canvas sizes, like so. The only limitation about this is that at the moment you cannot select a canvas size, a predefined canvas size here in the 2D image options from the RapidAuthor. So here we have millimeter references. This is likely to be added in the next RapidAuthor version. Another area of our enhancements in version 11.1 is, of course, a number of additional input formats that we're now supporting. And these are not really formats, these are new versions of the existing formats. You may see them listed here. And now we also, of course, are able to import surface edges, as you have seen. We also support ULP geometry with a rapid GT component, and we improved interpretation of product manufacturing information. In regards to input of PLM XML from Teamcenter, we added search rules for alternative representations. We added new geometry search rules. As some of you are familiar with the problem of PLM XML, is that geometry can be traced through different references, and there's no really single routing along the which geometry can be located. So we added a number of additional search rules, and we also support a clone function from Teamcenter in regards to PLM XML. So these are data input changes and improvements. Now we further continue to refine our implementation of S1000D standard. Let's talk about that. Firstly, we added the S1000D 4.1 SRM specification. So this is a rapid catalog specification here. So this table is implemented in accordance with the rules for SRM specification. There isn't much about it really, so we continue further on S1000D subject. Now, the big area that we've been working on is the implementation of common information repository, and this really only works with Teamcenter. So if you are a user of a standalone RapidAuthor, you will not be able to make use of this. Let me show you basic principles of how to of what it is. This is a sample data set that we have here. Let me open this item. This is the actual information repository with some sample data. So we just placed some oil types that we are going to reuse in our actual publications. So just a list of different terms. You can, of course, enter these terms here through rapid text, or just import this XML, which should be, of course, corresponding to the S1000D specification. Now I'm opening a standard Cortona3D item with some procedure authored in accordance with S1000D. Here. So these consumables, materials, and expendables block of information, you can see here these are oil types from that repository. Now what I can do, I can add a third one, for instance. So there is a strict hierarchy of tags. Tags, of course, you have to observe those tags. This is not our invention. This is a strict compliance with S1000D schema. So what you would do here, you insert a supply description tag first. Then supply reference. If I click, double click here in the supply reference tag, it would open this window, which actually loads all those terms from that information repository. And of course, I can insert my my new element here. I may specify additional properties such as the required quantity, and of course this also works with the validation mechanism. Like so. So let's just save this and export back to Teamcenter. Now, if I go to the Cortona3D preview tab, this would, of course, show that publication. Here, this is our third oil type. Now, let's go back to the information repository and just change the title of the previously used oil type. Okay, so all of them are used in our publication. Let's just change the name of the first one, like so. Save it and export back to Teamcenter. And now we need to perform a republish action with the original publication where the information repository is referenced and used. While this action is being performed, a few notes about the information repository. Information repository can be anything really, not just consumables, materials. It can be a list of definitions commonly used in your publication that you need to reuse. And once you perform the change in the repository itself, this will be this change will be affecting your publications. So since we now performed the republish action, we should see the modified name of the first oil type here. You can see that here. So this is the basic use of the information repository. It can work with pretty much anything as long as it complies with the S1000D itself. The way this is displayed, what sort of terms are displayed here, it's all configurable with the specific rules data module. Okay, moving on. In regards to the SCORM learning package that we introduced with the previous version of RapidAuthor 11.1, 11.0 last summer, is we added the ability to use 3D content in SCO and SCPM specifications. A few words on the SCORM itself. This is the learning package that contains training modules, questions, and procedure references, and it packages that content in a SCORM information standard. The idea is that you create content with RapidAuthor and reuse it with the learning framework. So let me just show you this functionality with the reuse of 3D content. This is a sample data module here again. So this is a specific item, SCO content course. It references some steps from different publications in my Team Center. So let's just add a reference to procedure step from some other publication. So again, this has to follow a specific structure of tags. So let's add another training step here. If I double click, I see this query dialog box. I can perform a complex search within my Team Center. Now let's just take a step from this specific item and select actually the bit from that XML. So this window is now going to show the complete structure of this document. Just a random procedural step, and we're going to reference it in our SCO content course, like so. Okay, we save this, and if we preview this course, you will see that the 3D content, the procedural content, is now being shown here. Let's just reload the preview. Okay, unfortunately, it doesn't get properly displayed here. The point is that you would see different tabs from all those publications that were referenced, and the corresponding 3D content will get displayed on the right-hand side here. This is the new addition of the already existing functionality. Previously, we could only reference 2D content. Okay, moving on. In regards to the changes in Rapid Developer, there's only one change, really, the ability to input surface edges. Let me open the Rapid configuration with the sample input profile. If we go to the surface properties tab, this is the checkbox that is enabled by default. So whenever you input your CAD data, surface edges are imported by default, and you may of course disable this also. That is up to you to decide. Changes on Solver API library. We are now able to visualize the surface edges that I have showed you in the very beginning of this webinar. This is disabled by default if you are a user of this library, which is licensed separately. You can display them as well. We also added a number of new methods and properties, and the list of changes is provided in a separate document, which can be provided on request. A few other changes. We translated documentation for RapidAuthor for TeamCenter into these languages. We also now ship a Java package along with the RapidAuthor and Rapid Developer. So this does not require a separate install. They install together. We updated the RapidAuthor connector for TeamCenter. The update itself contains all those S1000D changes that you have just seen. We now also support version 12. The new RapidAuthor connector for TeamCenter is a version 5.1. And we fixed a number of errors. Now, this concludes a list of all the changes and new features that we introduced. You would find a summary of those changes on our website. Please do give us a feedback on new functionality, and of course, if you have ideas, however trivial, small, or major they could be, you can provide it to us, and we will be, of course, reviewing and possibly implementing those features in the future releases of RapidAuthor. So now we can answer questions if there are any, and let's give it a few minutes. If there are no questions, then we can conclude this webinar.